I'm Brer Sam. And I'm Charles Wallace. I'm Calvin. And we are here to read Peter Pan's Precious Treasure. Didn't we adapt this story to film? We sure did, buddy.
Yeah, but we're here to read it, so you guys can know what the book is like.
Let's continue. Chapter 1. He had come back to the nursery just like he did every night after his adventure with Wendy's daughter Jane. He peered around the corner of the nursery window. He saw that the room was decorated differently from when he brought Jane home. There were now odd new furniture in there, as well as paintings of Neverland, which made him smile. Then he watched Jane walk in. She was grown up, but what had Peter's attention was the odd roundness of her stomach. He found himself slightly intrigued as he watched Jane brush her fingers over the bars of a crib. Suddenly she gasped, her hand on middle. Peter's brow was furrowed in concern. What was wrong? She then smiled and rubbed her middle. "Seems like you're going to be full of energy, little one," she said. Peter stuck around until Jane had fallen asleep against the window, when he slowly placed his hand against her stomach. Then he felt a bump against his palm. He shifted his hand over her stomach and felt movement within. He found himself awestruck by the movement. What was in there? He then noticed a book sitting nearby. What to expect when expecting. The cover had a picture of a mother and a baby on it. Peter flew back to the desk and wrote Jane another letter, something he did often to assure Jane he hadn't forgotten her. He signed it and set it in her lap. Then he flew back to Neverland as dawn rose over the horizon. Wait, Peter saw that Jane was pregnant. We didn't have that in our movie. Well, yeah, maybe because I didn't want to follow the book a little too closely. That's the trap a lot of films fall into, buddy. Makes sense.
Yeah, let's continue.
Good idea, Cal. Chapter 2. Pixie Hollow was bustling with excitement and anticipation. It was that time of year when new fairies were to develop and then be born. How their reproduction worked is that when a baby's first laugh reached Neverland, it would form into a tiny egg-like sphere. Then it would be taken to a flower to develop further. And they were quite tiny, whereas they were the size of fairy-sized gems. To fairies, to humans, they were practically the size of a grain of sand. The color of the sphere depicted one of the many fairy talents: green for tinkers, ocean blue for water fairies, purple for the fast-flying talent, and so on. The color also depended on which two fairies pixie dust touched it. For the fairies whose pixie dust touched it would be the ones who'd get to raise the newborn fairy. Well, that's not how Tinkerbell's life started. No, it wasn't.
She was already a tinker because a hammer glowed, not because of the color of her sphere.
Yeah, but it's how this book is written. Yeah. Peter had arrived to visit with Tinkerbell, who was for once not busy with an endless supply of tinkering to do. No one seemed to have noticed a slight change in wind, which had sent one of the teeny tiny spheres toward Peter. It rolled down a branch, covering itself in pixie dust that came from the tree, before landing in a human-sized cup of water. Wow, there are going to be a lot of little fairies running around here soon, Peter teased. He then felt a tap on his hand and looked down to see the water fairy standing by a cup. Ha, thanks. I was getting a little thirsty anyway. Peter brought the cup to his lips and downed the cool liquid in a few gulps, and the sphere along with it. Once he swallowed the last bit, he sighed happily. Yet, while he continued to socialize with the fairies and go on with his day, inside him the tiny little sphere had landed in his stomach, but it didn't stay in there long. By magic, it passed through his stomach wall before moving down his body to settle at the base of his abdomen, and a wall grew around it, and then a little heart started beating. See? I told you that's how it happened! I told you!
Oh, Charles Wallace, why do you always have to be right?
Continue reading the next part. Chapter 3. Peter groggily woke up the next morning. His head hurt like heck. He walked to an underground hot spring. He set his clothes on a rock and slowly climbed into the warm water. The steam eased his aching head, as well as his tense muscles and joints. He leaned against the wall of the spring, still rather tired, and was just letting the water warm him before starting to lean back, that the water was at his shoulders. As he laid his head back, he felt something that snapped him out of his sleepy thoughts. What was that? He wondered. He looked at his rather thin belly where the odd feeling was and gave it a small rub. What's going on in there? He wondered. There was an odd sensation that started deep in his abdomen. Then it almost felt like it was spreading. It's from that cup of water!
Charles Wallace.
He could feel something strange inside him. It wasn't his actual stomach that felt weird, it was further down, in the same area as his intestines and other internal organs. What was inside of him? Peter closed his eyes and focused hard on the strange feeling, his fingers pressing inward, slightly, lightly, and carefully feeling around for the source.
Wait a minute! Peter can see inside himself! Well, of course he can. He's Peter Pan. Calvin's right.
All right. Inside him was a teeny tiny little baby. Peter could only stare down at his belly in complete and utter shock. He couldn't be having a baby because, one, he was a boy. Only mothers could bring babies into the world, and he was anything but. And two, if word got out about him, there was no guarantee that he or the baby would be safe from Captain Hook and his crew. But then he felt another fluttering-like sensation, and he smiled. It was as if the baby was saying hello to him. He wasn't going to say a single word about this to anyone. We'll just have to keep you a secret for now. That sound good with you, little one? He rubbed his stomach, his palm resting right over the tiny life that had taken residence inside his body. He just had to figure out how to keep his friends from finding out.
Aw, that's cute! Yeah, but how on earth is he gonna keep his friends from finding out?
We're just gonna have to see.
Yeah, Charles Wallace is right. You gotta go forward to find out. Better press on.
Chapter 4. Peter returned just as the boys were starting to wake up. The boys were practically tearing their food to shreds, whereas Peter was taking his time. Then a thought came to him as he swallowed down his first bite of food. He was eating for two now. If the baby was already starting to get nutrients from him or not was unknown to Peter since it's only the first day, but he still wanted to make sure he got enough to eat for both him and the baby. I bet you must be feeling super comfortable in there, little one. I wonder what it's like for you in there. Peter, are you all right? Peter looked up to see all eyes were looking at him in confusion and concern. I'm fine, just thinking, that's all. That answer seemed to satisfy the boys, who resumed eating. Oh, that's not surprising. It sounds like you, Calvin.
Oh, Charles Wallace, what's the matter with you?
Peter laid comfortably on his bed. He gazed up at the ceiling. His hand rested on his tiny baby that was growing inside him. The young boy pondered what every mother wants to know. What's it gonna look like? Is it a boy or a girl? I wonder what it's like for it in there. When will it come out? All these and many, many more raced through his head. During his daydreaming, the baby within him was gently moving around inside its private world, safe and secure. Peter reached for his pipes and started blowing a gentle lullaby melody on it for his baby, just wanting it to hear it, so it would not be frightened of it. Suddenly, the sound of rain and thunder boomed as a storm roared over Neverland. Peter then felt that something was wrong. Inside, his child was actually trembling rather violently inside him, causing him to be very uncomfortable. He wanted to get up, but he was afraid it might just cause more trouble. Could the thunder be scaring the young creature before it's born? A sign that it will be born as a coward? Nah, he couldn't think that. Maybe it was just a little startled. Peter's hands rubbed his belly soothingly, and the trembling gradually stopped. Peter vowed that he would always try to protect his baby no matter what.
Aw, that's so sweet!
Yeah, it is.
Let's continue reading. I want to know what happens next.
Me too, Cal.